Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest on the line, brother by the name of Jason Williams. Morning, brother.
Morning. It's good to be with you. How y'all feeling?
Blessed, black, and highly favored, Mr. Williams. For those that don't know who Jason Williams is, let them know who Jason Williams is and what Jason Williams is doing.
I am currently president of the New Orleans City Council, and I'm running for district attorney of Orleans Parish, New Orleans, to the rest of the world. And I'm running because our system isn't broken. It is working just as it was designed, which is dual purposes. One, to prosecute and over-police one group, and to protect and serve another. And it's time to upend that and to finally bring some fairness to the criminal legal system in New Orleans.
Man, I have never heard somebody break it down so clear. Like I've always heard the system is designed to work the way it's working, but what you just said about it's designed to oppress and prosecute one group, but protect and serve the other group.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a car. I mean, if you press the gas and it moves forward, it's working exactly as it was designed. Mm-hmm. And so we can't call it broken. The good news is white men designed it, which means men and women can redesign it so that it can finally work and live up to America's true promise.
As DA, what are some things you want to change in Louisiana?
You know, I mean, this is not a moment for putting our toe in the water. When you look at what's been happening in this country and in the world, it is time to radically redesign the system. We have to be honest. The system is racist and it is sexist. And so we have to end mass incarceration. We live in the most exonerated country on the planet. My state is the worst offender. My city sends more people to jail than anybody else. So we have to have the goal of ending mass incarceration by decriminalizing simple possession of drugs, decriminalizing people in the throes of mental health crisis, decriminalizing crimes of poverty. And this allows us to focus on serious stuff: murder, rape, armed robbery. So that's my goal, is really upending this system in a radical way to make it truly function.
How do we end the violence that is so high in parts of New Orleans? How do we cut that down a lot?
That's a great point. And when you really look at who is shooting at who, these are folks who are retaliating against families for crimes that occurred to them sometimes over a year before that. And that family's retaliating because the system has failed to go after the right person. We're also the exoneration capital of the world here in the city of New Orleans, meaning we get it wrong. Innocent people go to jail and sit, which means the person who committed the crime is left on the streets. And when other families see that person, they start popping off at them. And so finally prioritizing violent crime and bringing solutions to victims, because most of the victims, you don't hear this on the news, most of the victims are Black people. Crimes occurring, they want to talk about who's committing the crimes. Most of the victims are Black folks. And so people have been taking crime into their own hands. And by finally bringing trust to the system, witnesses will be willing to participate, and we can go after the right people, not everybody.
Jason, how important is it to have empathy for people? You're from New Orleans, right? So I'm sure that there's times that there's people who you know personally who end up coming through the system. So how do you deal with that in those situations when you know someone personally?
Yeah, you know, I've been fighting for people's rights for almost 2 decades now, one case at a time as a defense lawyer working for the Innocence Project. And you can't live in New Orleans and not know somebody who has been picked up and touched by the system, whether it's for a few days or a few weeks or a couple of decades. So we have to have humanity. That is what has been missing from our criminal legal system. Even if a person absolutely did the crime, we don't have to dehumanize them through the process. Brian Stevenson says it so well when he says the opposite of poverty is not wealth, it is justice, right? So we bring some humanity to this piece, and we get rid of the trap doors for people, and we can finally figure out a way that people can have some on-ramps to success. And that's really what it's about.
And what about controlling some of those guns? It seems like, New Orleans has a lot of guns. Is there a way to control some of that somehow, some way, get some of them guns off the street?
Yeah, it's tough because the NRA is super strong and folks are super weak when pushing back on this issue. We just watched a bunch of people with long guns all over the country, talking about reopening the economy. But people really lost their minds when the Black Panthers had rifles, right? People really lose their minds when they see a young African-American who has a gun because he's scared for his safety. So, we have to make sure that we're having that discussion in a way that is fair for everyone, because we can't make guns in certain people's hands a criminal offense when really they're just trying to protect themselves. Illegal guns, the black market that is trying to get our kids to break in their car windows to get illegal guns. We need to go after these adults who are perpetuating that black market so that we can suck that market dry so that our kids don't see this as an opportunity.
I often wonder, can you really reform the judicial system and the prison system, simply because the prison system and the judicial system is big business? You know what I mean? There's a lot of money in locking up folks, so can you really reform a system like that?
With the help of folks like Jason Flom and John Legend, folks who are leaning in on this issue with us, we're starting to redesign how people think. I don't think you're ever going to get a prison to say, hey, I don't want to make more money, right? But we can redefine success in the criminal legal system, which means are we looking for prosecutions, the number of prosecutions, the amount of time? Is that what success is? No, success needs to be justice for victims and public safety. And so I'm going to redesign the system so that my young prosecutors see success as making people more safe than they were when they came to work that day. Not how much time did I give a person for simple possession of cocaine or simple possession of marijuana.
Yeah, I was looking at some of your top priorities too, man, and disrupting the school to prison pipeline, by making trauma-informed screening. So basically that's, taking these young kids and helping them deal with their issues as opposed to throwing them in a cage and making them, even more traumatized. Why is that so important to you?
Well, it's important, number one, because I remember how I was when I was 14, 15 years old. And when I did something wrong, I got detention. I got more school. Now we got kids getting put out of school, and you got teachers sometimes calling the police on our kids. You really think that kid is going to learn from that teacher the rest of the school year when he gets out? And so what I'm hoping we can do is sort of set up some new disciplinary structures, bring some restorative justice to the fold, have some real intervention therapy, whether it's mental health, whether it's addiction, whether it's trauma. When there's a school shooting in a suburb, they shut the school down. They bring in social workers. They bring in doctors to work with teachers and the kids. I represented someone who sat in his father's blood for 3 hours before the police came, right? Wow. And the first time he got some intervention therapy was when the police came to get him for his first crime that he committed, never discussing his trauma. And so we have to intervene in people's lives in a meaningful way.
Did you see?
Now, one hot topic has been marijuana, right? With marijuana being decriminalized in so many places, but a lot of people have suffered and went to jail and are still in jail for crimes related to marijuana. So what do you see with the future of marijuana being legalized, and what's going to be happening to make sure that Black and brown people actually are able to partake in profiting from it?
So the person I'm running against back in 2008 when we were having a crime spike, she was the DA. And she upcharged thousands of marijuana cases, literally giving people 5 years in jail for a joint.
Wow.
Right. And so when I got on the city council, I wrote the legislation to decriminalize marijuana. We couldn't legalize it because we're a liberal city in a very conservative state, but we were able to write the law saying the police now will write a ticket for a person with marijuana so they don't lose their job, they don't go to jail. But I really believe that the Biden-Harris administration is going to correct that issue
no,
nationally.
They're not. Joe Biden says he wants to decriminalize, not legalize.
Nah, man, that's not enough. That's not enough. You can't have one place where people can start a business and then have other people sitting in jail for long sentences when all they've done is cross state lines. That's why COVID has spread the way it was, because we didn't have a national plan for it. And so we got to do that same thing as it relates to marijuana. More people get killed because of Scotch, Hennessy, vodka, and gin than get killed because someone smoked a split.
Can you explain the difference between decriminalization and legalization? Because people say decriminalization, but that's not legalization.
No.
Yeah. So like legalization, you have people who can start farms, people who are starting grow shops, coffee shops, and really making it a part of the economy. And then you tax it, And then you're able to build new schools and make sure every kid has an iPad, has a computer to work from home. When you decriminalize it, you just stop people from going to jail for it, and it's more like a fine or like a traffic ticket. It is a baby step towards where we know we need to go, because a lot of places are very conservative and they're engaging in fear mongering. But we have to be reminded of the words of Richard Nixon's chief of staff. The war on drugs was never a war on drugs. They never thought they were attacking drugs. They were trying to marginalize people that were not going to vote for Richard Nixon, which is the same reason they take our voting rights away when someone gets a felony. I mean, imagine if we had voting booths and polls in all the jails and prisons of Louisiana, we could make our state blue in one night. But there's a reason that they're doing these things.
Right.
You know, what did you think about, President Barack Obama saying that the messaging of defund the police is bad messaging?
Well, you can love a man and disagree with some of the things that they say. We absolutely have to start reallocating and putting our money behind our principles. In municipalities, the only systems that have grown, the only agencies that grow every year are in the criminal legal system. Less money for libraries, less money for parks, less money for infrastructure. If that is the only place you're putting your money, that is the only place you can get your good outcomes. But as Frederick Douglass said, it is easier and better to build strong boys and girls than to try to repair broken men and women. So why spend all this time on reentry? Let's reinvest money. I moved $1.5 million from the police department and put it towards early child education, because we know that is going to yield real dividends. People are going to make better choices, and there will be fewer victims because they have a more literate, educated, informed electorate.
No, President Obama didn't say he's against what defund the police is.
The title,
he just said the slogan
right,
turns people off as soon as you hear it. And I tend to agree with him, because I think democratic messaging sucks, because we don't focus on the why enough. Like, you just told us the why, which I agree with. But it's that slogan. As soon as you see defund the police, people will be like, oh, I don't want to hear it. We're not abolishing the police. It's like, no, that's not what we're talking about.
But Charlamagne made a lot of people start listening. A lot of people got nervous. And sometimes we need that radical statement just to get to where we need to be.
True.
Having Malcolm and having Martin both hitting this piece from different angles and different degrees, it got people to focus and really thank Martin for a nonviolent approach. And so now that people are talking about defunding the police, you got a lot of mainstream and conservative people talking about reallocating resources, which is what we really need to happen.
I agree. I just want us to be smart enough to not argue with each other, right? Because that's what happens. We start doing infighting with each other about what we should be calling it, instead of talking about what it actually is.
Yeah, my wife has this line. She says that Republicans fall in line, but Democrats and liberals want to fall in love. Yeah.
100%. What are some of your other top priorities?
Well, I also believe that we as a city, and Jason talks about this a lot on his podcast, we have to look back and confront the sins of the past. You can't just start correcting things. And Ms. Yee was just saying this. All the people sitting in jail for marijuana right now, how can we not have some retroactive conversations about the harm that has been caused to communities by old bad laws, right? So I'm going to look back and have a conviction review unit that's going to be looking for wrongfully convicted individuals and working within my office to get them back to their community, and then go after the real perpetrator, and looking at old excessive sentences, right? Because there's a number of people who are sitting in jail for small amounts of drugs that, when the law has changed now, where they wouldn't be serving that time. So if we don't confront the sins of the past, the families of those folks are still not going to trust the system of the present.
Now, also, when doing our homework on you, we've seen that the FBI have been asking you questions about your taxes. So what happened with the FBI and your taxes?
So literally, Harry Moses did a movie. It was a documentary film pitting me against the current DA and his abusive policies. And I announced at the movie screening that I was going to be running for DA in 2020 on a Monday. On a Thursday, the FBI was investigating me, right? and after 2 years of that investigation, right, the FBI said we found nothing, right? And now we are about 2 weeks before qualifying for this race to change our criminal legal system, and they open up a tax case because they were investigating my CPA, because it turned out he was actually not a CPA. He defrauded hundreds of people. He didn't have an MBA, but he said he did. And so they've come after me because they say he took aggressive deductions on my taxes, but they haven't even questioned, talked to, or investigated over 700 other people in which he took the exact same deductions. And then Bill Barr, Donald Trump's Bill Barr, the head of the Department of Justice, came down the first day of early voting in this election to give a speech to a big hotel ballroom saying you can't elect progressive DAs. Watch people, any elected leaders with a social justice agenda. It does not fall in line with Donald Trump's plan for policing and prosecuting in America.
We know what
that
that
tells
is,
you all you
brother.
need to know.
We know what that is. They just scared of you, and they scared of what you're going to do to that system. That's all that is.
And that's not, and Charlamagne, that's exactly right. It's not a new playbook. They did it to MLK. I was reading Coretta's biography, and she said the thing that hurt him most is when not the death threats, and not the burning crosses, but it was actually him possibly losing credibility with his community and with his church because they said he did not pay his taxes. Right? They did it to Adam Clayton Powell. They did it to Maynard Jackson. It is an old playbook to marginalize anybody who's trying to change the system.
They just did it to Robert Smith.
Exactly. After he does what? Tries to give people on-ramps for success.
That's right.
Well, how can people donate to what you're doing? It's runwithjason.com?
Runwithjason.com, and they can give $20, they can give $5,000. And, you know, we've been getting help and support all across America. This has not just been a New Orleans piece. John Legend has weighed in. The author, John Grisham, has weighed in because they believe if the most incarcerated city in this country can get the criminal legal system right, then the South can get it right. And if the South can get it right, then America can get it right. And if we can get our criminal legal system right, then we can finally really start discussing the American racism pandemic, because housing insecurity, food insecurity, underemployment, it starts by people getting that stamp of a misdemeanor or a felony long before they should ever be in the system.
I mean, you know, one of the things I really like about you, Jason, man, is that, you know, you really do invest in the youth. You know, when you was on city council, you helped reinvest over $1 million in the early childhood education. And I just appreciate that so much. I think I want to see that duplicated throughout the country.
You know, I think if we did that, we would see our criminal justice system have fewer people having to be in it. And so we would take a bloated system that is the most bloated in the world, put it on a diet, which would allow us to focus our resources and attention on the most serious cases and put intervention in. But Gavin Newsom is looking at trying to do the same thing for the entire state in California in terms of early childhood education. But it is really a way to reduce crime and reduce incidences of violence against people by investing early. It's a long game, but it's a smart game.
All right.
Word.
Well, we appreciate you checking in this morning, brother.
And when's the election?
This Saturday, brother. This Saturday.
Okay.
So make sure you get out there and vote. Jason Williams, if you want more information, you can always hit up the website, Run for Jason?
Runwithjason.com.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, brother. It's
Thank you,
Jason
King.
Williams. It's The Breakfast Club. Good morning.